Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. Great to have you with us on this Monday. We are presented by Gatorade. Dave Revson, Rafael Davis, after another busy hoops weekend in the Big Ten. And obviously the biggest story was the one turned in by Ohio State. An improbable week for the Buckeyes, culminating in a huge win.
Well, now we have a Big Ten race again. Illinois, that door is open, wide open for you. I know how much it matters for Coach Painter to win the Big Ten championship, so I'm curious to see how those guys respond. But shout out to Ohio State. You can see it. Those guys in that locker room, you hear Bruce Thornton after the game. It was all about the guys. They were connected. It looked good for the Buckeyes.
It really did. They were totally dialed in this game. It is our big story. Just 4 days after the firing of head coach Chris Holtmann, Ohio State turned in its best performance of the season. Bucks got 22 from Bruce Thornton, 19 from Jamison Battle, all in the second half. They never trailed after the break. Handed the Boilers their third loss of the year in the debut of interim coach Jake Diebler. Let's focus in on Ohio State first, because they are the story coming out of this. Amazing resilience, and to me, they won this game on the defensive end.
Yeah.
I thought they were just outstanding there.
I was going to say the same thing. You look at Fletcher Loyer in this basketball game, what he does for Purdue, he gives them space, he can knock down shots, he can make plays. Even the guy, Lance Jones, he's a guy that makes them go from the perimeter. And you look at what Ohio State was able to do to those guys. I mean, Roddy Gale just straight up locked Fletcher Loyer up. Fletcher Loyer goes 1 for 7 from the field, 6 points, took him out of the basketball game. Lance Jones gets his 13 points, but he's 3 of 11 from the field. I thought the defense from the guards of Ohio State was phenomenal. They limited Zach Edey, made it tough on him, took the ball from him 3 or 4 times. I thought they were dialed in on that side of the court, because you look at Purdue's turnovers. When Purdue loses, they turn the ball over. It was 17 turnovers against Northwestern, 14 at Nebraska, 14 turnovers against Ohio State, and those 14 turnovers led to 22 points for the Buckeyes. You can't do that on the road if you're Purdue.
Yeah, 14 turnovers. I mean, when they've had 14 or more this year, they're 5-3. Mm-hmm. When they've had 13 or fewer, they haven't lost.
Yep.
So that is kind of one of the things that is a thread that runs through these games. And when you look at how those turnovers happened, a number of them happened in the post. Zed Key had 5 steals. I mean, Zed Key has kind of faded away a little bit this year, not just physically, but I mean, he just hasn't been the kind of presence that I think a lot of us expected him to be. And man, he was outstanding. He's given up 8 inches to Zach Edey, and he fought him tooth and nail down there.
He accepted the physicality of the basketball game. He fought him in the post. He didn't give in. He battled every single time. He made that initial catch tough. He would push Zach Edey out from his sweet spots. He would be big in the post, make him finish over him. And when he saw the basketball, when there's an opportunity to swipe down, he got the steals. Zed Key came into this game with a mindset that we have to win this game. You hear Bruce, you hear the guys talk. They were connected in the locker room. When their coach got fired, Bruce called the guys, let them know it's all about us right now. And Zed Key, being a leader, he has to show up in that moment. And the big fella showed up and did more than just allow those guys to win the game. He gave those guys energy, which they should be able to carry on throughout the rest of the season.
And then can't say enough about Jamison Battle in the second half. He just shot the ball. I mean, it was really so. He had like 3 threes. Game. He had as many threes in like a minute as Purdue hit the whole game.
Yep.
Jameis only hit 3 games.
He went on a 9-0 run in that second half, like you mentioned. 60 seconds, made 3 threes in a row, separated the game. 19 points in the second half, 6 of 8 from the field. He got whatever he wanted in that second half. For Purdue, Fletcher Loyer, just going to have to say it. He's got a guard. He's got to be able to trust him in the tournament, trust him in big games, to put him on a guy and limit him. Jamison Battle, once he saw blood in the water, he just started attacking. Once he saw a couple go in, when it got down to that stretch, that nice pull-up at the end of the game to go up by 4, he was tremendous. Bruce Thornton got him going with his 22 points. When you have 2 guards hit you for 20, it's tough to win those games when your guards aren't producing.
And yet, Purdue did a lot of things well in this game. Most notably, they went 20 of 20 from the free throw line.
That's crazy.
You go 20 of 20 from the line, you think you're going to win the game.
On the road,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy to make that leap.
Yep.
What I found really interesting was the kind of how you beat Purdue, right? The template for beating Purdue seems to be you try to be as physical as you can inside on Edey, and then you hope that the guards don't have big games on the perimeter. You hope that they don't beat you with the threes and then that you can turn them over a bit. What was weird to me for Purdue was they only shot 9 threes. Like it just felt like they were so out of sync there, and they not missing threes, but not even really shooting threes.
And I think you got to give credit to Ohio State, because I think you be physical with Zach Edey in the post, you cause some turnovers. You don't hope Purdue shoots it bad. You just force them to shoot it bad. You limit their ability to shoot threes. You look at Roddy Gale pushing Fletcher Lawyer off of those screens, running him off the line. Fletcher Lawyer gets open a lot of times because of the defensive mistake. He comes off that triple screen along the baseline. If you go removed, which means if you get separated from Fletcher Lawyer, he's going to flare screen you into the corner. It's going to be a knockdown three. But Roddy Gale stayed connected, followed the scouting report. Even Jamison Battle, Bruce Thornton, those guys were locked in, and they ran Purdue off of those three-point line. If they were closing out the shooters, getting to a body, forcing guys to put the basketball on the floor, and then offensively, they just attacked them. They attacked them every time down the floor, and what that does to you on defense, it wears on you. So when you get on offense, you're a little tired. You look at Fletcher Lawyer, in games when he has to guard, when there's a third perimeter player, he normally doesn't shoot it that well. So I think in games like those, he's got to step up to the plate, make shots, defend at a high level. Lance Jones has got to shoot it better, because it can't just be the big fella and Braden at this point going into March. Those two guys are going to be key if Purdue wants to make a run.
And didn't really get anything off the bench. Outscored 20-4 off the bench. It ended their 9-game win streak. Came about 24 hours after they were given the number 1 overall seed in that early bracket reveal by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. Iowa and Wisconsin. The Hawks pulling off the overtime win. Again, Wisconsin may be the bigger story here just because of the way they have faded a bit here and need to kind of get things together as they head into March. But let's focus on Iowa first. This is a team that didn't have a quad 1 win all year. They get one here, and it just really felt like offensively, man, when they get it going, even against what is a good Wisconsin defense, man, Iowa can be tough to stop.
You think about Wisconsin, they scored 86 points and lost. They did everything they needed to do offensively to win that basketball game. They just couldn't stop anybody. Iowa had a field day offensively, especially in that second half. And the guy that stood out to me, stood out to everybody, it's got to be Owen Freeman.
Unbelievable.
Big time. I mean, no more. He's freshman of the year. There's no more time to talk about freshman of the year. I think it's time we talk about Owen Freeman as being on a Big Ten, all Big Ten team. He could be second team, third team. He goes 20 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks, 2 steals, and plays 38 minutes.
Crazy.
Against one of the best big men in the conference, in Stephen Crowell. He took the game right to Stephen Crowell, wasn't scared, was physical, rebounded the ball well. He was big time. He's just coming into his own. And then Tony Perkins in that second half, he really struggled in the first half. Struggled to the point where Coach benched him. Went with Brock Harding. Brock Harding was big time to end that first half. And Tony really showed up in the second half in overtime. 16 of his 18 points coming after the break. He got them back in that game and really sealed it down the stretch.
I was never out of it. Third double-digit comeback of the year for them. They're just a team that can score. The Badgers, to me, I mean, you lead for more than 25 minutes. Again, you're on the road. It's hard to win on the road in the Big Ten. But at a certain point here, now you've lost 5 of 6, and it really had no answers defensively at all in this game. Some of that's about Iowa, but some of it has to be about Wisconsin, too.
Yeah, I was talking with Mike DeCourcy in the green room, and I told Mike, I said, the winner of this game is going to get 3 stops in a row to win the game. Whoever gets 3 stops in a row is going to win this game, because that's what teams work on in practice. That's what you do. You want to go home after a long 3-hour practice. You get 3 stops in a row. Practice is over. And Iowa, at the end of that overtime, they got 4 stops in a row. It comes down to the defensive end, especially in close games and grinded out games. You got to get some stops. You can't just outscore everybody. Wisconsin's got to find a way to dig down on the perimeter. You think of Tony Perkins in that second half, getting into the lane at will, finishing at the rim, getting others involved. Think back a few games ago, Jeremiah Williams getting into the lane, making plays. Chucky Hepburn, Max Klesman are really, really good defenders. Sometimes quickness bothers those guys, though. They got to find a way, keep the basketball in front, not let Iowa drive the basketball around them. You look at the free throw discrepancy. Iowa got to the free throw line a tremendous amount of times. That's just because they were getting whipped off the bounce.
And Wisconsin didn't hit its free throws either. That was an issue for them, kind of uncharacteristic. Look, they still have a really good resume. They have 6 quad 1 wins, but slipping a little bit. I mean, they were the last team in that bracket reveal, so 16th out of the 16 teams that were revealed. Obviously, then you go out and lose to Iowa, probably slip down to a 5 seed. Illinois and Maryland. Illinois was in that bracket reveal as well. The Terps, a team that has had Illinois' number. Brad Underwood was 2-9 against them coming in. What impressed me was, we've talked a lot about this, Illinois struggled to close out games.
Yes.
And for them to close this game out in the way that they did, on the road, hostile environment, on a day when Maryland was honoring Lefty Driesell, who had passed away. There's a lot of emotion in the building. That tells me a lot about Illinois.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how they did it. I don't know if you noticed it this way, but during the basketball game, Terrence Shannon, get out of transition, make open threes. Don't force it too much in the half court. And then when they got to winning time, when the basketball got stagnant, when it wasn't moving, Marcus Domask became the point guard in the half court. It was Terrence Shannon in the open court, Marcus Domask in the half court, and they really played well together. I mean, Marcus Domask gets some 19 points, 12 rebounds, 7 of 14 from the field, just able to get to his spot in the half court. He's such a bucket that if he just gets to his spot, he gets to that turnaround jumper, you can almost count it. And then Terrence Shannon, he goes for 27, gets 16 free throws attempts, makes 14 of them because he is that load in transition, him getting to the rim full speed. There's nobody in the country that can stop him. And then early in the shot clock, when they do initiate their offense, they go quick. When he's making those open early threes, it takes his team to the next level. But I think this is the best those two have played together since Terrence Shannon has to come back from that suspension.
And not a ton of stuff that shows up in the box score. He had a good game offensively, not a great game, but Justin Harmon did a ton of little things.
It was a difference. I mean, Justin Harmon off of the bench. You think about Maryland, you think about Illinois. Terrence Shannon goes double figures. Marcus Domask, Coleman Hawkins. And then Maryland's core played well. Jameer Young gets 28. Julian Reese shows up. Dante Scott.
63, I think, between them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need a third guy. Illinois was able to get that third guy off the bench, that fourth guy off the bench, and Justin Harmon. He came in the game, gave him 10 points, gave him great effort on defense, really limited Deshaun Harris-Smith, who had his best game of the season a game ago. Deshaun gets him 8. But he goes 4-11 from the field. That's a big credit to Justin Harmon. Came in really efficient on the offensive end and then played his tail off defensively.
It's a weird game for Maryland just because they've hung their hats so much on the defense, particularly when they're at home. They were better offensively, frankly, in this game than they were defensively. They just didn't have any answers, and as you said, couldn't keep themselves from fouling and sending Illinois to the line. A lot of whistles in this game.
Yeah, you look at Marcus Domask, think about who was guarding him. It's a freshman, Deshaun Harris-Smith. Marcus Domask has been around college basketball a long time. All he has to do is get that freshman to the spot he wants to, get him on the hip, get him to that little turnaround. He just took advantage of that matchup. And that's just a credit to Marcus Domask being around in college basketball a lot. You think of Terrence Shannon, just a force in transition. There's nothing you can do. No matter how good your defense is, Terrence Shannon going full speed in the open court to his left hand, just get out of the way because you're going to foul him and he probably will finish it. But I think Illinois, they put so much pressure on you in the transition game. 19 points in transition. That's the game there. Maryland wasn't able to get out and run, and then they missed 5 free throws and Illinois made theirs.
Right. All right, so Maryland goes on the road this week. They're in the midst of a stretch of 4 of 6 at home. Kind of favorable scheduling stretch there for the Terps, but the 2 road games this week, they head to Wisconsin and Rutgers. Our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade, taking us back to Ohio State's win over Purdue. Quite a debut for Jake Diebler as the interim coach for the Buckeyes. Led them to their first win over a top 5 team in more than 2 years. And how about this? Diebler, the first head coach since 1999 to defeat a top 5 team in his first career game as a head coach. Matt Doherty was the last to do it back in 1999 when he led Notre Dame to a win over, coincidentally, Ohio State. Jake Diebler joins us now for our big interview. Coach, congratulations on this win. There is clearly talent on this team, and I know you've recognized that all year, and we've certainly talked a lot about it. Why do you think it finally came together in the way that it did yesterday?
Well, I think there's certainly when you're faced with adversity, which, you know, this week's been really tough. We all love Holt, and our players do, our staff does. But, you know, we were forced to come together at a level unlike really anything, you know, we had all year. So when you do that and you get guys, you know, really, really pulling for each other and you know, putting, you know, their teammate above all else, I think that you see a result like that. You see at least maybe not even a result like that, but you see effort, togetherness, like you saw during that game for us. So I was really proud of them for that.
Take us through this whole day here. I mean, it's your first time as a head coach. So I've got to believe there's a lot of nerves and anxiety to begin with. And then as the game's unfolding and you're playing well, and you've got to make big decisions here down the stretch, substitutions. I mean, all those kinds of things that you haven't done before, timeouts, all of it. Like, what's going through your head during all of this, Jake?
Just trying to be in the moment and stay present. We have a great staff here, and I think we worked. Reflecting back on the game, I thought we worked really well together. We talked in our staff meeting today just about the communication, the dialogue that was happening was really beneficial just for me personally, but I think most importantly for our team. So I had gotten some great advice from some people I respect so much, including Coach Holtman, leading up to the game about just being yourself and staying in the moment. And I tried to do that to the best of my ability.
Yeah, you have no lack of coaches in your life, right? You mentioned Chris Holtman. I do want to talk about him in just a minute, but obviously your dad is a very well-known and very successful high school coach. You worked for Bryce Drew, you worked for Homer Drew, you worked for Thad Matta, you worked for Chris Holtman. I mean, the list goes on and on of really impressive coaches that you've been around. How did you kind of orient yourself during the course of the week in terms of who you got advice from and how you balanced what they told you with kind of the advice that you said Chris gave you of just being yourself?
Yeah, it's there was a lot of information coming from a lot of people. And listen,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to work for some high level, Hall of Fame level coaches. And I've always tried to, when working for those guys, I've always tried to take little things that they do so well and incorporate them into just how I coach even as an assistant. And listen, make no mistake, I'm a significantly better coach today than I was before I came to Ohio State to work for Coach Holtman. And I'm so thankful for how he mentored me, while he was here. But Homer Drew, playing for him, coaching for him, Bryce Drew, I think just has an unbelievable basketball mind. And Thad Matta was so good with his players, and I've just been really fortunate, and I think leaning on them was critical, but seemingly so, they all seem to have a very similar message of just be yourself and be the best version of yourself you can be. So I really held on to that.
What went through your mind when that last buzzer sounded there and you knew you had won the game?
I knelt down and said a quick prayer. I think that was just I wanted to take that moment just to praise God, just by myself there, and it didn't seem fully real at that time. And as we went through the handshake line, I got somehow my wife and my dad and my mom and my best friend made their way onto the court, and I got to just give them all a hug. And in that moment, I think it became pretty emotional.
Take us through this week, because this week, as you said, wasn't easy. And we start with Chris Holtman, who you've already mentioned a couple times. To know Chris Holtman is to like Chris Holtman. He is a wonderful guy. I've obviously spent a great deal of time around him, have incredible respect for him. So you're kind of in this shocking situation here, Jake, where you find out that he got let go on Wednesday and that you're going to take over this program. Take us from that moment of the emotions you felt for Chris and his family, and then the task in front of you, and walk us up until game time.
Yeah, but immediately, and even really leading throughout the week until I was able to have another conversation with Coach Holtman, I believe it was Friday night. He and his family weighed heavy on my heart, and I know how much he poured into this program and how much they sacrificed. So I certainly thought about that, but Gene Smith had been really helpful to me to just kind of, and really our staff, we had to focus on our players, and it's been all about them. It's still all about them. And, my job right now is to support and serve them as best as I possibly can. So I've been tasked with that. I take that responsibility very seriously. Our staff takes that responsibility very seriously. But the days leading up, we quickly had a staff meeting, and then we had some administration meetings as they communicated with our staff and our players. Then we got to meet with our players. Then the next day, I scheduled individual meetings with every player. And, the day it happened, I reached out to the parents, or at least one parent of our players, And then we got to practice, and we had a really good practice. I believe it was Thursday. Had another good practice Friday and finished with a great day of prep on Saturday leading to the game. So that was kind of the breakdown of the days and events. But I was really impressed with how well we were able to practice, and we tweaked a few things. But I think it speaks to the leadership of our team and just the type of guys we have in our locker room.
What did you tweak?
We changed the pace and in kind of the urgency at which we operated practice with. You know, you mentioned my dad. When I played for him in high school, we were known for playing some might call reckless, but very fast with a great deal of passion and intensity, and that fits who I am from the standpoint of operating with a sense of urgency. So we did that in practice. We upped the tempo, and our guys responded. I just was very open and honest with them before we started. I said, here's what we'd like to do. And the only reason we're doing this is not that, you know, anything other than it just fits me and gives me a chance to be the best version of myself for them. We still had most of the same drills and a lot of things like that. So they were receptive to that. I think they enjoyed it. It was tiring at first. They got used to it there after a couple days, but that was the biggest, I think, maybe just small tweak we've made up to this point.
As far as the game itself was concerned, so impressed with the job Zed Key did defensively on Zach Edey. What was kind of your message to Zed? It feels like he's gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit this year, maybe hasn't had the year that some thought he might. How did you get him to play the way that he did?
Yeah, when we had our individual meetings, Zed and I we talked openly about, you know, him maybe not playing to the level he wanted to, and also, you know, the level we want him to at times this season. And I just told him I felt this was a fresh start for him. And, you know, there were some things that, you know, he needed to do better. We talked openly about that. He had some thoughts on what those were, and we just held him accountable to those the next few practices. And he earned the right to play well. I think that's the biggest thing. He showed some growth in practice and some change. And, you know, I was really, really happy for him to go out and play the way he did. And his steals on Edey, who's just, I mean, you forget almost how great of a player he is until you're in the game with him. You watch him on film and things. But for Zed to make those plays and guard him the way he did at times was really impressive and important for us.
Who was the most surprising person you heard from in the aftermath of all this, Jake?
That's a tough one. I don't mean to dodge your question, but it might take me some time to really process through the amounts of calls and text messages. And certainly since the game yesterday, it's grown even more. But I think the thing that became clear to me is that there are a lot of people that care about this program and the people within this program. And the thing that I enjoyed the most was the amount of former players who reached out. So I don't know if that was necessarily surprising, because here at Ohio State, we talk about this basketball family, this basketball fraternity, and it is real. And I've seen it firsthand because obviously my brother played here and how close he is with the guys from that era. But for multiple eras and former players to reach out and just say, you know, how proud they were of the way our team played, I think was really meaningful and important to me, and something that resonated at a high level. So sorry that wasn't, you know, a direct answer to your question, but I do think it's important to note, because that's something that even this morning when I woke up, I just thought was really special. And we care, you know, about finishing this well, obviously for the guys in that locker room. And again, we're going to serve them our staff's going to serve them as best as we possibly can down the stretch. But we also know how important this program is to the people who came before us, and we want to make them proud as well.
Let me leave you with this, Jake. You head on the road now, Minnesota and Michigan State. We won't belabor the point, but we know the road has not been kind to the Buckeyes this year. How do you kind of harness this and carry it forward and take it on the road with you?
Listen, we need to do some things better on the road. There's no hiding from that. But I think the most important thing is we need to play like we've practiced and ultimately played, against Purdue. Now, will we make the same shots, or maybe we make a couple more mistakes? Certainly, there's so many variables in the game that could happen. But if we play as together as we did, and if we play as hard as we did, then we're going to give ourselves the best chance to win on the road. And it's Minnesota's a really good team. It's a fun environment to play in, and then certainly you follow that up with Michigan State and legendary coach, and big time home court advantage for them. So we understand that there's a tall task at hand this week, but our focus is going to be maintaining the same togetherness and toughness and effort that we had yesterday, and taking that on the road.
Well, Jake Diebler, congratulations on a huge win in your coaching debut. Really, really fun to watch that game yesterday and to watch those guys come together. Look forward to seeing what the rest of the year holds for the Buckeyes.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Go Bucks.
Back on Big Ten today, Northwestern a 4-point victory at Indiana yesterday as the Cats remain the only Big Ten team Mike Woodson has not beaten in his Hoosier tenure. 4 straight wins for Northwestern over IU, first time since 1933. 3 straight road wins over the Hoosiers for the first time since 16. Yes, that's 1916. 9 conference wins in consecutive seasons, first time in more than 90 years. And 21 conference wins over the last 2 years combined. That is a new school record for Northwestern. This was a weird game.
Yep.
They shot 35%. Indiana shot 51%.
Yep.
Bowie and Barnheiser combined for 5 of 23 from the field. So I think if you would have kind of laid out those numbers and said who won the game, you would not have come up with Northwestern, and yet they did. They just figured out a way.
I would have said Indiana by 15, 20 points.
Right.
No Ty Berry, a limited Boo Bowie. Boo Bowie gets in foul trouble in that first half. Brooks Barnheiser didn't have it offensively, but they had other guys step up. You think about how they won this game on the road against all of those odds. They took care of the basketball, only 3 turnovers, and then they won the rebound war. It started there for those guys, and then Ryan Lakeborg, he went off. He was tremendous. He was knocking down shots from deep, getting to the mid-range, getting to the rim. 26 points, but he was also finding teammates, especially on a day where Boo didn't have it going offensively. Ryan Lakeborg coming away with 6 assists. He was big time. And then the big fellas. You think about Nick Martinelli substituting in this game for Ty Berry. He and Matt Nicholson had the best games of their career as a collective. They combined for 27 points and 29 rebounds. Just outstanding.
Yeah, they both had double-doubles. Yep. First time Northwestern had 2 players in double-doubles this century. Last time it happened, it was Evan Eschmeyer and Napoleon Harris, who went on to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft as a linebacker. It's an unusual game. And you think about Northwestern, right? So they're 2-1 in the games without Ty Berry. They were the leading 3-point shooting team in conference play in the country.
Yep.
And then these 3 games, they've shot 37% from 3 and 33% from 2-point range, which is not good. No. And yet have figured out a way to win 2 of the 3. So give them a credit. Again, forced a ton of turnovers for Indiana, and the rebounding was fabulous. They took 12 more field goal attempts, so that's a big way to win a game. Michigan battled for a while against Michigan State, but the Spartans finished on a 10-0 run. Exactly. They won it by 10. When you're Michigan, it's hard to win a game where you literally don't score in the last 7 minutes of the game. But Michigan State really good here, and the seniors kind of played like it. Exactly. Tyson Walker, Malik Hall down the stretch just kind of didn't let them loose.
You think about those seniors, maybe Malik Hall in 2019. The other guys never won at Michigan. This is their first win at Michigan since 2019, Malik Hall's freshman season. So they wanted to win this game for pride. You want to win this game. You want to win rivalry games. Records go out of the window. You're going to get your opponent's best shot. But in those last 7 minutes of the basketball game, Michigan State just decided to turn Michigan's water off on the defensive end and just shut them down. Kept the basketball in front, played without fouling, tough inside, kept the ball out of the lane. I thought it was tremendous defense from Michigan State. And then again, Malik Hall showed up. They won 5 out of the last 6 games. In those 5 wins, Malik Hall is averaging over 20 points a game. In that one loss at Minnesota, Malik Hall goes takes 4 shots, scores 6 points, 1 of 6 from the free throw line, just didn't have it. When he's playing this way, when he's aggressive, when he's getting downhill, giving them post presence, giving them buckets in the paint, Michigan State goes to that next level. You know what Tyson Walker can do. You know what A.J. Hogarth can do when he's hooked up. Jay Nagels can make some shots. If this is the Malik Hall that they're going to have the rest of the season to go along with that tenacious defense, I really think Michigan State can make a run.
It is really remarkable how much better he's been like these last 6 weeks. He had a few games here and there. The Minnesota game, he did not play well. But other than that, I mean, no one's going to go out and play well every single game. But he's just been a totally different guy. He's been locked in. You can see how much Tom Izzo is, A, relying on him, and B, enjoying watching him play, right, and seeing kind of the fruits of Malik Hall's labor here pay off. But really good and kind of did what they do, right, 19-2 edge and fast break points, kind of played the game you would expect. And Michigan played well for a while. I mean, you had all 5 starters in double figures, but just kind of seemed to run out of gas there at the end. Nebraska just overwhelmed Penn State. They were not great offensively, but, man, they suffocated Penn State on defense.
I mean, it was a terrible game in the first half to watch offensively. I mean, it was a rock fight, and it wasn't because it was great defense. It's because guys were taking bad shots. It almost looked like Nebraska was playing into the hands of Penn State, just chucking quick threes, not moving the basketball. But in that second half, offensively, they got better. They took good shots, shot at 50% from the field. But like you said, it was their defense. Their defense was outstanding. It was tough. It was gritty, not pretty. And the guy that really showed up in the moment was Sam Hoiberg. I thought his defense on Ace Baldwin was sensational. I mean, Ace Baldwin had been balling the last 4 or 5 weeks. He comes into this game against Nebraska, gets 10 points on 4 of 11 from the field. But it wasn't just Sam's defense. It was also his other efforts. He got 4 points, but he got 6 rebounds. That's the smallest guy on the floor. He showed up big time.
16th home win for Nebraska. It's the most in the country. They're 16-1. They have not lost a Big Ten home game. They've not won a Big Ten road game. They will head on the road to see if they can end that against Indiana. Game you can see Wednesday here on the Big Ten Network. And then a big one yesterday. I mean, this one I think flew a little under the radar, maybe nationally, but these are 2 teams trying to work their way into the tourney conversation. We saw Rutgers. Mike DeCourcy had them in his next 4 outs in his bracket on Friday. So, in other words, among the final 8 teams that don't make the tournament. Minnesota, I know it's kind of a slim chance here when you really look at their resume, but this is a team no one wants to play right now. And, man, their second half was tremendous yesterday. That front line is so good.
I just start there. You just start with Pharrell Payne. Pharrell Payne is a grown man playing youth basketball at this point. That's what it looked like in the game yesterday. He was tremendous. 21 points, 11 rebounds, 7 of them on the offensive end. When that basketball was shot, he was attacking the glass, looking to eat his dinner. He was big time down the stretch. Took the game right to Cliff Amore. And Cliff Amore is one of the better big men, not just in the Big Ten, but defensively in the country. And Pharrell Payne had no issues. But Ben Johnson talked about the game after the game. He said it was our defense. And they talked to the guys at halftime. And you could tell because after halftime, in the first 5 minutes of the second half, Rutgers goes 2 for 10 from the field. Minnesota was locked in. They were flying around defensively. I thought a guy that stood out that haven't got much credit this season was Braden Carrington. Braden Carrington has been the only guy in the last 4 or 5 games to be able to keep Jeremiah Williams out of the paint, keep him in front, limit his offense abilities. Jeremiah Williams gets 9 points. He goes 2 of 10 from the field. A big credit goes to Braden Carrington for sure.
First game that Rutgers has lost with Jeremiah Williams in the lineup. And now you feel like with Rutgers, again, look, it's 1 loss, but they needed to start accumulating more of these wins, right? They had won 4 in a row. It's, hey, can you win another one on the road against a pretty good team that's given people trouble? Weren't able to do it. They probably have to start doing some unusual things now, and they have a chance to do something very unusual coming up this week, which would be win at Purdue.
And I'll be there in attendance. And they've done it before. They won at Purdue.
Did it last year.
He's not scared to go and play in front of that crowd. I think that's going to be a big-time game. Talk about Jeremiah Williams, like you just said. Guys are due for bad games sometimes. He had his bad game against Minnesota. I expect him to pick it up. But with that pressure defense, with that press that Rutgers presents, I think that can give Purdue a little bit of trouble. But Purdue's coming off of a loss. They're going to be motivated.
This might be the bad timing award. They still have a game at Wisconsin as well. Rutgers does. So you look at, like, what can you do to really get the committee's attention? A couple games on that schedule that would do it. It is time to go around the Big Ten. Penn State captured its 4th straight conference crown. Its 10th since 2012. They topped Nebraska yesterday at Rec Hall. Nittany Lions actually lost 3 of the first 5 matches, but rallied from there en route to a 22-13 victory. New women's hoops poll is out today. Ohio State and Iowa hanging in there both at 2 and 4 respectively, so they stay in the same spot. USC up 3 spots. They are now number 7, future Big Ten member. Another future member, UCLA, dropping 3 spots after losing to Oregon State, and Indiana holds steady at 14. How about some hockey? Number 2, Purdue wasn't the only ranked team that had a tough time at Value City Arena this weekend. Ohio State's hockey team swept 4th-ranked Wisconsin, winning 3-2 in OT on Friday, 3-1, I should say, on Saturday. The Buckeyes entered the weekend having won just 1 conference game, and they win 2 against the number 4 team in the country.
Can I smile a little bit?
You
know,
got
I haven't
former
had
Buckeye,
a lot
yes.
to do this
Yes.
year, but yeah, it was pretty good stuff there.
Okay, Paul Caponigri is here. We need an explanation. Tell us how this happened.
You know, it's funny. Good teams, long season. I mean, Purdue had a tough one against the Buckeyes. I think just Wisconsin was not on the top of their games. The Buckeyes have not been that bad, just a hair off. Hockey can be so fickle that way. They got great goaltending. You know, for Wisconsin, though, they just did a lot of uncharacteristic things. They're one of the toughest teams to play against. They're strong defensively, and you didn't see a lot of that. And quite frankly, Ohio State, and the biggest problem for them has been scoring. They could have had maybe 4, 5, 6 goals in this Saturday game where you thought, okay, after a loss Friday, Wisconsin would bounce back.
Right.
But it didn't look much different. You could see Mike Hastings on the bench. Knowing him, like keeping his composure, I think he wanted to explode, but I think he's learned to temper that. He'll take care of that this week. You know, luckily there's a couple weeks left in the season, but not great signs for Wisconsin. And a note, the biggest winner this weekend was Michigan State.
By doing nothing.
By doing nothing, I think that happened.
Yeah.
They went up in the polls, as we saw.
Right.
But also, they kept a 4-point lead. They had a 5-point lead going into the weekend. If Wisconsin were to sweep Ohio State, they would have jumped ahead, controlled their own destiny. Instead, Michigan State still has a 4-point lead, and they will play that last weekend. So it was a huge win for Michigan State.
Right, that's going to be huge. Wisconsin, Michigan State, the final weekend. It was interesting. Mike Hastings was talking about the turnovers. He had a great quote. He said it went from our stick to their stick, and from their stick to the back of the net.
And that's not a recipe for a win.
No, it's not. I really enjoyed that quote.
Coach, love them.
Minnesota and Notre Dame, they split their series, but I know you came away probably more impressed with the Irish.
I mean, they beat them 6-1 on Friday.
Right.
And that's been a little their MO. They'd have a really good Friday. They beat BU, who's the number 2 team, Friday night. They beat Michigan State at home big. And then Saturday, they kind of fell off. Well, this weekend, they did a much better job. They went to overtime. I mean, they had the lead. Minnesota came back. But Notre Dame's in that weird spot where they're not going to make the NCAA tournament unless they win the Big Ten tournament.
Right.
But they're showing signs there because when you play in the playoffs, that first round is a best of 3. So you can't just have one good game. So that was a better indication there. And for Minnesota, this is 7 straight weeks for them playing. I think they're running out of gas a little. They get next weekend off a bye.
Right.
Kind of sets up nice for them, honestly. They get a bye week, then they have Michigan at home, and then bam, they're right into the playoffs. So they had a bunch of guys at that World Juniors that played, came right back, and then 7 weeks straight. And those guys are big parts of their team. So I think they were running out of gas a little.
Irish, meanwhile, 4th place now in the Big Ten. They're 3 points ahead of that Michigan team we were talking about. Michigan and Penn State splitting. Wolverines probably needed more than that.
They did. I mean, it's tough, and they went down in the polls. And like people are really down on Michigan. I feel like they're waiting to see them stumble. You know, going on the road against a Penn State team who's they're not in the top 20, but they're 23, 24. I mean, the Big Ten doesn't have any teams that are really weak. So you get a road split and people are really down on them. I think it's just the time of the year that it's happening. And you win Friday, you need Saturday. But Penn State played well. Their goaltender played well. I think if they would have visioned the whole season to play out like Saturday's game and goal, they would have liked it. But Michigan's got some work to do. I saw some things with the analytics of getting up in the pairwise. They got to win 3 out of 4 here, where they have Notre Dame at home and then at Minnesota. Not easy, but they have the talent to do it. It's just a matter if they can get the puck to go their way.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the NCAA tourney battle, and obviously that is completely contingent on the pairwise, as we've talked about
computers
through the years. But let's give you the standings here really quick, just to give you a sense of where things are. Michigan State, as Cappy was saying, 4 points clear of Wisconsin. And again, had Wisconsin swept this weekend, they would be in first place. Minnesota's third. Notre Dame and Michigan tight in that battle for fourth.
Yep.
With the Irish up 3 points. They're followed by Penn State and Ohio State. So we got Notre Dame and Michigan playing this weekend. I know that's really big, but give us a sense, too, of NCAA tournament and where it sits right now in terms. You got 3 in the top 9 in the pairwise, so they'd certainly make it.
The top 3 are a lock, and then obviously right now Michigan's on the outside looking in. Everyone below those 3 would need, at right this moment, would need to win the Big Ten tournament, but Michigan still controls their fate in terms of in the regular season. If they can win at least 3 of these next 4, the better 3 out of 4 would be 2 Minnesota and 1 Notre Dame, because you beat the higher ranked team twice on the road, because that's where the computers kind of come into play. It's a higher percentage win, a road win, a top 10 team, obviously. But they're the one team that controls it. After that, once those 2 weeks break down, it's all about in the playoffs. So Michigan is a talented NCAA tournament team. If they get in, they could win the whole thing. Are they going to? That's just tough. They have a tough schedule. But what I've seen in the past with Michigan the last 3-4 years, their talent, usually when they get their back up against the wall, they usually answer the call. Like the last 2 years, they went into Minneapolis and won the Big Ten championship on the road against unbelievably good Gopher teams. We'll see if they can continue that. A lot of those players are back from those teams.
So to be clear, Michigan could still get in via the pairwise, and you're saying Notre Dame, the only way
Notre Dame
is
winning the Big Ten tournament at this point. It's just the numbers don't crunch up, because this is their last. These 2 games against Michigan is it until the playoffs for them. They bye the last week.
2 weekends left, but not everyone plays.
Right, because the 7 teams, everyone has their turn in the rotation, and this year it's Notre Dame not playing the last week.
All right, we got some drama. Would you want any other way?
Yes. Hockey brings it.
Bring it on.
We're just dramatic. What can I say?
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Cappy.
You got it.
Wrapping things up here on Big Ten today. What a week ago might have felt like a fait accompli suddenly got a bit more interesting this weekend. We talked about it. Illinois now within a game of Purdue in the battle for the Big Ten regular season crown. They will square off in Champaign March the 5th. Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin battling for those last 2 double byes in the tournament. 5 teams with 7 or 8 Big Ten losses, with Maryland and Penn State best positioned to get out of that bottom 4, which of course means you play on day 1 in Minneapolis. And a Big Ten tourney tips off March 13th. Here's what it looks like as of now. Would start with Penn State, Ohio State, followed by Maryland and Michigan. Thursday would feature 4 games, including Iowa and Rutgers and Minnesota and Indiana. Michigan State and Nebraska both would get single byes. The double byes as of now would have Wisconsin and Northwestern joining the Boilers and the Illini. Rafael back with us for the last minute here. Biggest headline you'll be following down the stretch.
Does Purdue take care of business? Do they win the Big Ten championship? You think about Coach Painter. He still cares about winning the Big Ten championship. It still means something to the program. Can Illinois take advantage? But then I look at Maryland, where they're sitting in that Big Ten tournament conference break at 11 right now. You think about winning that first game. They can get to Nebraska, get to Wisconsin. Maryland can end up winning the Big Ten tournament.
Whoa.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
But you think about it, they win that first game.
All right, give us the bracket again.
You give us the bracket.
I need to see the logic of.
I'll give you the logic for sure.
With this.
Give you the logic. You think Jameer Young in that first game against Michigan? I'll take Jameer Young. In Nebraska, what does Nebraska struggle against? Athleticism and size. You think Rick Mass, he's going to struggle against Julian Reese, Dante Scott. Wisconsin, they struggle against the same thing. Wisconsin's going to struggle against Jameer Young. You think about Stephen Crowell. You put Dante Scott on Stephen Crowell, it blows up all of their actions. Julian Reese can guard Tyler Wall. Maryland at that 11 spot is real interesting.
How about that? Now, you realize no team has ever done that, gone from Wednesday to win the whole thing.
Caitlin Clark breaking records. Maryland can break a record, too.
Nothing is impossible. We will see you tomorrow on Big Ten Today. Trent Meacham will be with me. Thanks so much for watching.